Now, on lifestyle, our debate on Black Lives Matters continue. Obviously, we all know it was kicked off by the brutal racism and tragic murder of 46-year-old George Floyd in Minneapolis in the States, and while being detained by 4 officers. Police officers have been arrested. One of them has been charged for second-degree murder. We all probably know that by now. But what we want to do, we're looking at certain things. We know it's headline news across the globe. We know protest marches and things like that's been taking place. Statues have been torn up over here and in the States as well. And various individuals connected to the dark pasts, if you will, their dark and unsavory past, have been pulled down. And talks are being taking place about perhaps doing it better, perhaps doing it correctly. By having these talks about various statuettes and what they imply, and about taking them off and maybe putting them in museums. So, but what we're asking now, what should the level on the agenda be now? What's on the agenda? Where should we be now? And also, what direction would you like to see the movement head on to? So, joining me in the studio. Oh, by the way, I should let you know that the second half of this debate. Again, we're going to, like we did last week, we're going to ask you to please send in your questions and comments. You had a huge response last week. I hope we can have that again this week. Send in your comments or questions, and you can do that. What we need you to do is either go onto the YouTube, and that's the MediaNet Live, YouTube channel, MediaNet Live, Facebook page, Lifestyle on Ben, email, lifestyle on Ben, all one word, lifestyle on Ben, at hotmail.co.uk. Right, now, hopefully we've got the panel up in here. Joining me on the Lifestyle Show today, we have pastors Michael and Marjorie King of the King of Kings International Ministries in Croydon, entrepreneur Rianna Thompson, Dr. Jackie Jeffries, Head of Business Studies at Middlesex University, and Lifestyle Features correspondent Norman Busigu. Are we all in? Are we all in, Norman? Hi.
Hello.
Michael and Marjorie, thank you for joining me. Lovely to see you. Rianna, thank you for joining us. Lovely to see you. Yay. Thank you. We're missing, hopefully she can join us later, Dr. Jackie Jeffries. But let's kick off. Let's kick this thing off now. I just posed 2 questions. I just said, what level should the agenda be now with the Black Lives Movement? What direction do we want to see it heading on to? And, just for the sake of the fact that, there's 2 of you there, Michael, Marjorie King, would you like to respond to that one initially?
Yes, it's a strong point. What direction next? It's a powerful question, powerful point, because the world is standing up and saying no more. The world is standing up and saying we've seen this injustice, this inhumanity. We've seen this wickedness and murder, and we're not accepting it. But the real question is what happens next? And for me personally, as a Christian, we always have this thing that's difficult for people, which is forgiveness. That Christ said we must forgive in the Lord's Prayer, forgive us our trespasses as we forgive them who trespass against us. But within that forgiveness is a degree of us asking for an understanding and recognition of the wrongs done by the perpetrators, not just the officers, but their organizations, not just the organizations, but wider society and all it ills. And as a Christian, we ask for godly change from the top down. So for me personally, the force has to really reassess how it operates, and it owes a massive apology to the people it's supposed to protect. In fact, it's not supposed to be a police force, it's supposed to be a police service, both here in the UK and in America. And then there needs to be a change educationally amongst the nation. People have to understand Black Lives Matter is part of Black history that's not told. The truth is never told. Even taking things like Windrush here, we talk about Windrush. My father was the founder of the Windrush Foundation, and most people don't. The Windrush brought people to rebuild the mother country, and the vast majority of people on Windrush were ex-service people. And no one says that these people fought in the Second World War and were invited to rebuild the mother country. So my point is, when Black history is told, Black people have a different pride in themselves, and the indigenous populations have a higher regard and better understanding of the relationships that we can form together going forward. And with a Christian underpinning, we do it all with love. It changes things with love. I love Martin Luther. He did peaceful protests, but strong protests, and love was underpinning everything.
Michael,
you had the dream of little white boys and little white girls who play together. And the reality is, little white girls and little white boys don't have a problem.
It's
the indoctrination of society that changes things.
Yeah.
As a Christian, I say, if everybody was a born again,
you know what, we're losing time.
Wouldn't have a problem.
Talking is going. We're losing a bit of time with it. I don't know what the problem is, because when you talk, it's coming out. You're not in sync with things. So I don't know. I want to talk to Marjorie a minute, but I think maybe I'm going to ask Theo, our tech guy, to sort that out. Marjorie, I'll come back to you, because it's like you're seconds off. So I'm going to come back to you. Rianna, right, the questions posed then. What would you say then, forward thinking, where do we go now? Where should we be heading to now?
I think Reverend Michael King actually summed it up quite well. I think there's 3 steps to where we go from here, and it starts with the truth. So the truth needs to be told as to the system that we're living in, as well as the history of our people. And then I think the next step would be forgiveness. And I think if there's any evidence as to what Black people are like, we're very forgiving. They are protesting or rioting in central London because they want to protect statues. Whereas when you go to Egypt, all the pharaohs are missing their nose and no one wants to address it. So in my opinion, you can see how we as a people react to the defacement of our statues, and you can see how they react. They're violently attacking police officers because the protesters haven't shown up in the mass, so to speak, for the Black Lives Matter movement. And then also, so sorry to hear about those 2 women in the park, but you can see why people would want to stay home and protect their children and stop them from going out and protesting on Saturday, because that is the level that they're allowed to behave at. And the Equality Act of the UK is not even being enforced at this point. Like, their behavior is illegal in its essence, and no one's addressing it. None of the politicians are addressing it. The truth of our history needs to be addressed. There's so many pieces missing from the African timeline before slavery. We all know it was the greatest empire. We all know that they stole civilization and then called us monkeys. We all know that Mansa Musa was one of the richest men, or is still the richest man known in the history of the world. And what he did was, on his pilgrimage, he gave away gold. And he was being generous, but what they saw was an opportunity to come into Africa and reap that for themselves. So the truth needs to be told about our history, which is so vast and so complicated that the entire education system needs to be rewritten.
Of course.
I have an entirely different issue with the schooling system, sorry, not the education system.
I'll tell you the truth, though, because we spoke about this last week as well, Rianna, with the members that we had on the panel last week. We keep talking about this. We need to, it's great to have a Black History Month, but we need to roll on with Black history per se on the curriculum. So at this point, I'm going to bring in Norman. Norman, you've been going about, features correspondent Norman Busigu, you've been going around, you've been talking to people, you've been talking to mothers, you've been talking to people that have been on these marches. When it comes to, Black history, when it comes to the educational system in this country, how much people are really pushing for this, and what are they asking for? How are they going to do? How are we going to change it? What are we going to?
That's a very fair question, Pam. And first of all, I'd like to agree with the other comments raised about changes that need to be made with the education system and what's going on. There are 2 things that I think we need to rethink about as far as the future. One of them is really looking to the law, because a large part of the protests are calling for widespread systemic change to help overcome the racial injustice, to prevent these instances happening again and again and again. Because it's almost like being in a time loop. Like we had, just to name some examples, Eric Garner in 2014, Alton Sterling in 2016, and Stefan Clark in 2018. So
on, doesn't it?
So yeah, so with regards to where we need to go, I think it's two things. One, really looking to the law, and secondly, really utilizing the power of social media and youth in orchestrating this change, and that's what we've been seeing. So, with regards to my first point about looking at the law, Eric Garner passed away on the 25th of May, and it's not even been a month yet. But from that time, we've seen a great amount of legal change that's taking place in America, and I want to list a few things because I think this is the direction that we need to go in, insofar as combating the systemic issues that are at play. And I think this trend has to continue. So to list a few, for example, the Democratic leaders in State Assembly of the Senate have reached an agreement on 10 bills related to police conduct, including a ban on police chokeholds. So hopefully that'll prevent that instance of what we saw all in the viral video happening again. And I think that's a very important step. It's a deterrent. It's something that's illegal now. It's something that if you do that, you'll be terminated. There might be further legal repercussions. So that's a very important step that has to take place. In New York, the New York City Council leaders have declared their intention to slash $1 billion in annual police funding and aims to reroute it to youth social programs. That again is very important. Where is the money going? If it's not going to the police departments, how is it being redistributed back into the community to ensure that people have the opportunities to excel? You know, in the Black African community, we speak a lot about generational wealth and keeping wealth, you know, Black business and entrepreneurship, and how do we get wealth back into our communities? Well, the redistribution of wealth from the council back into the local community, I think, is a very important step. And what New York has shown there, I think, could potentially be the start of something great there, should it materialize in that way. And one last example, we're seeing in Minnesota, a resolution to replace the police department with a community-led public safety system. I think that's very important. And again, all of these things with a very specific law focus, I think, are the way that things need to go. It will be slow and it will be gradual, but I think given that we're all operating within this system, this is the way that it has to go. And we're seeing that within a month of the incident with George Floyd. We're seeing real tangible change. So now it's about continuing that. In regards to my second point, just to be quick here, the power of social media. What we're seeing now with the use of Twitter, Instagram, social media, this couldn't have happened 50 or 60 years ago, where the great leaders of yesteryear, for example, Martin Luther King, they didn't have social media, they didn't have smartphones or things like that. So the spread of information, the spread of awareness is so instant now. And if I look at some of the pros that we've seen from social media, let's look at donations and e-petitions. The George Floyd Memorial Fund smashed its 1.5 million goal and became the most donated GoFundMe page on the website. Again, it's not even been a month since he passed away. So that shows you the power of social media. And again, things like Blackout Tuesday on social media, celebrities, companies, people really using their online voices to spread awareness and to really highlight the change that needs to occur. So in sum, I think it's those two things. The law and the reliance on the legislature within particular countries or governments, will be what have you, to really spearhead that change so that it's cemented, so that the systemic issues can begin to erode away. And secondly, the use of social media and really the power of youth in driving forward awareness and information.
Excellent, excellent. Marjorie, can we get you now? I don't know whether we fixed the sync. I don't know, but anyway, I want to talk to you now. You and Michael, parents of 6 children. So when you talk about education, I mean, come on, when you talk about education and when you are obviously teaching your children Black history, but it should be done in school. So what are you looking at now in change? If we can use what's going on now to our advantage and look at the educational system in the UK and demand change and to get Black history onto the curriculum. How would you help that to happen as well, Marjorie?
Well, I definitely believe that where we can begin is by putting up more Black statues. Like we're tearing down white statues right now, but we need to put up some more Black history, Black statues that mean something. And one of them I'd like to do right now is putting up Sam King for Windrush Square. I think that's important that there should be a statue there, and what he stands for, because he's the founder of the Windrush. So therefore there should be a statue. And I was looking it up, and we've got 21 monumentaries, Black statues, but we haven't got enough. We've got Mary Seacles, and I'm trying to teach my children there's other Black people with statues, but there isn't enough. There isn't enough around England right now. And then the other thing they wanted to do is call it Diversity Month, with which Black history. We fought hard hard for Black History Month. And now what I found that the society has been trying to do for the last 4 years is turn it into Diversity Month. If you want to have Diversity Month, they should have a Diversity Month for another month, another time. But we Black people, there's people died, they sweat for Black history. And we need to keep Black History Month and celebrate that we people have died for us, died for the cause. I've had to go to a few schools and had to speak to a few schools and say to them, look, there's no way you're going to call it Diversity Month when and that the children don't even know Black history. Exactly. Diversity Month should be another time, another place, another another month, but not Black History Month.
Yeah, not Black.
We had about 20 teachers and 2 Black women. I protested outside the school and gave out leaflets and everything, all parents to turn up, and they didn't turn up. But me and 2 other parents, we put a stop to it at the school. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Can you all hear me?
I can.
Okay. We put a stop to that. We put a stop to the schools anyway, and it was an achievement. Even though it took 2 of us, it was a massive achievement because they didn't turn it into Diversity Month, and the children can know that there is a Black history. But when it comes to Black History Month, they do very little in the schools, very, very little on the subject. And that's why you don't have the children now not knowing their identity. The other my children's generation do not have an identity of Black history. You've got to force it upon them. You've got to, I've had to put posters all around in their playroom of Black history, of men who have found the lights, and Black men who discovered the fridge. They didn't know these things. There's a Black boy in Norbury. He discovered Nike. Yeah, but you've got in the white people who's taken that Nike and used it for him and paying him behind the scenes. But it was a Black boy who designed the Nike tick. We could go on and on and on about the things we've discovered.
At this point, Marjorie, I want to bring in, I think she's on now, Dr. Jackie Jeffries, Head of Business Studies, Middlesex University. Are you with me, Jackie? Are you on? Hi there, Jackie. Lovely to see you. Thank you ever so much for joining us. At this point, I'm going to just quickly tell you that we were discussing. Are you set? Are you with me?
Yeah, I'm good to go.
Okay. We were discussing sort of Black history onto school curriculum. This is the point we were at before we can go into another break, because the viewers are commenting and they've got questions. But Jackie, can you talk to us about that? Because we were saying, where is the movement going? What is the next agenda? Then we started looking at Black history onto the curriculum. Can you give us your insight on that as well?
I welcome and say hi to everybody. I wouldn't agree with those statements, and there's a lot of reasons for that. And one of the key ones is the schools are not equipped to teach us our history, because teachers are not taught to teach subjects. They are taught to teach the national curriculum. Now, we've got people out there like Mr. Walker, who spoke at my university, who can educate parents so we can educate our children, and then we can go into schools and educate society. I'm kind of tired of expecting the system that isn't designed for us to suddenly come right for us, where if we want something done, then we have to take more responsibility for getting those messages out there and for equipping ourselves to know that. So I kind of dream of training lots and lots of parents to know how to, deliver Kwanzaa, and then them going into schools all over the country where their children are and wherever it is, so that everybody knows what Kwanzaa is before Kwanzaa happens. I'm more interested in our parents going in and doing that stuff than I'm expecting any European school to educate my children. Okay. So I have a slight
I want to get your opinion from somebody. Rianna,
the
Rianna.
way that I see we need to go forward.
Okay.
Because I studied behavioral economics as well,
Yeah.
and we need to think far more strategically about how we use our money. And I love the fact that everybody's excited, and I love the fact of this issue about the black pound. But
Okay.
I don't know about other people,
Jackie?
but my payday is usually around the end of the month.
Yeah, I know. I know. You think that it should be at the end of the month. Jackie, hold on one moment. Rianna, I want her to respond to what you're saying. That it's not about, you know, these schools are training our children because they don't know it. And we, the parents, should be training. What do you think about that? What would you say?
So what I'd say to that is, in one instance, I do agree with Jackie, and this is also why I say that Black people as a whole getting organized is going to be important, because we've all got important messages and perspectives that need to be dealt with, or we start putting them online. I feel like if we were in a position as a people to homeschool our children, then I would agree that we take more responsibility. If the government were funding youth schools, then I would agree again. Like, I know Robin Walker does work, Saturday schools and stuff, teaching history. Now that we have the tools on the internet to create courses, I do believe that it would be easier for us to create a holistic course, whether we're getting Akala, Robin Walker, whoever it is, to create the curriculum that is cohesive and covers all of the history, and putting that online so that when the children come home from school, they're prioritizing that. Then yes, I agree. But to ask working class parents, when the system is designed to take away their time and keep them in a certain spot, to find the time to do that as well, like, they need to be educating themselves. And obviously the children would have a different curriculum based on the level of the atrocities they can be exposed to.
I mean, if we go to Norman again, you can talk to us briefly on that one. Jackie, Dr. Jackie Jeffrey says that no, she doesn't trust her children to be taught in a European classroom, a British classroom, and we parents should be responsible to do that. Would you agree that I was wondering whether or not then we start retraining the teachers? We train the teachers, they are trained, they educate themselves in Black history, and so they can do that in the classroom. What would you say to that, Norman?
Everyone has raised some very interesting points, and there's merit for all. I think personally, like in my personal circumstance, I'm aware of the history from the transatlantic slave trade to abolitionism. These are things that I studied on my own behalf because I was completing an extended project qualification in A-levels. I remember when I was in school, we were taught about the Tudors, we were taught about, let's say, Henry VIII and the royal family and the royal lineage, but nothing about the British Empire. And it's, you know, there's interesting points raised here because on the one hand, as it was said, it's difficult to try and rework the entire curriculum. And I think even though it would be ideal, I think if we look at the current climate we're in right now, especially with COVID in the midst of a pandemic, you know, a forecasted recession to hit the country, will we be in a position to actually implement those changes? Ideally, that would be great. But if we look at practicalities, will it be able to have that kind of wide scale change? It might be quite difficult. So in lieu of that, if we can't, then it turns back to the alternative. So let's say having online courses and having alternatives in place. Yeah. But it's a very difficult one because we're in very unprecedented times, and pushing change as widespread as this, where you're adapting the curriculum, because personally, I would love to see it. I think it's very important that people here understand what the British Empire did and how it colonized most of the world and the part that it played. Let's say with the Scramble of Africa, for example, in the 1900s, you know, how it carved Africa, set up protectorates and colonies, and you know what it did, both pros and cons. But I think moving forward, it might be quite challenging in this COVID climate. So we have to look at alternatives like e-resources, and it's difficult because where does the onus lie? Does it lie on the state or on the individual to equip themselves with the knowledge? I taught myself, but it comes down to, is it onus on the state versus the individual? And that I can't answer at this stage because I'm not entirely sure.
Okay. At this point, Norman, and to the rest of you guys, please stay where you are. We have to take this little break now. We have told viewers to send in their questions, to give us their comments. And at this point, we're going to get some of their questions and comments come out. As we just do a little bit of a briefing here, we just stop for a few seconds and we're going to come back. Okay, welcome back. Right, so I've got some already, and I see there's more going on here, but I've got some already, but there's more coming through. Okay, I know you just wanted to say something very quickly about the schools and the Black History being put on the curriculum. You had something else to come up with. What were you saying? I think we was in that little bit of a break, and I heard you discussing that. What did you want to say?
Right, okay, so a bit about the education. I totally agree that the school should be teaching our children, but a degree takes 4 years to get. In that 4 years, another child, another person dies, another issue takes place. So what I'm suggesting is that we take responsibility for educating our children until the system is caught up. Because my daughter turned 20 this year, and I remember having these conversations when she began school at the age of 5. We're still having the conversations. My oldest child is 30. She's still having those conversations. So all I'm suggesting is that we, in the interim, while these people get their act together, that the way that we force them to get their act together is that we act in a strategic way, and that we take more time and energy to look after ourselves rather than expecting other people do, because they'll never look after you better than you look after yourself.
Yeah.
And then where you really want to hit them, if I get to play, is I love this idea of the Black Pound and this idea of our have no impact, people are going to lose interest and they win again. So I'm looking at us thinking about things strategically. So we are the first people. Terry was on and explained the issue about the pharaohs. There's no doubt in history or in fact that we are the first people. So why don't we claim the first of the month? Why don't the first of the month we do our big focus every single month? Now, if you imagine, I get paid at the end of the month, and there's loads of people that get paid at the end of the month. Imagine it, instead of running to Tesco's and Sainsbury's and Waitrose, we went to our shops and we spent our money. If they don't have the products, we educate our shoppers, our people. So usually I would buy this, and it would cost me this. That gives them a month as business people to get products on their shelves that their customers are going to want. Now, this is not only about Black people, because as Terry was saying, Lustra produces products for everybody, but anybody who cares. If we use our money on the best day when they're used to making the most of us, because remember, we do our big shop, we go and buy our clothes, we go and do this, we go and do that, all on payday. Imagine if that was all going into one pot instead of theirs.
Yeah,
every single month.
But we do know that they're saying
that change the behaviour of everybody.
Jackie, they're saying the Black, they want it to start from the 15th of June to the 21st of June. And what they are saying is that please do spend your money in a Black-owned outlet for that particular week. I just
we don't own the means. Listen,
exactly. But Jackie, let me.
I'm kind of tired of playing.
Exactly, Jackie. Yeah. I need to talk. Get these out now, because these people are calling and they're sending me the things. Hendon in Hendon, Ian comments. We not only want to see a change in our judicial and political system, we want to see equality across the spectrum. And he's saying schools, housing, health services, sports, music, and proper representation in the media. That last bit I'd like to talk about. Proper representation in the media. How many times has it gone so drastically wrong with how we are represented, and how when the news comes out, how it's twisted? So can I just first of all ask Rianna to respond on that?
Yes, I think.
Let me give you an example.
The
under the law, under stop and start rules,
Rianna is responding. Let Rianna respond. Go on, Rianna.
I was saying, at the core of a lot of the issues that Black people face, there's capitalism. Now, unfortunately, the capitalists also control the media, which is why we have this reoccurring issue of Blacks being misrepresented. So it was really interesting listening to you talk to Terry. But like I said, we need to organize all of the people that we have that are representing us correctly in the media, put them together and get them on platforms like your own, because the internet has changed the game. So whilst they can control the media and they can twist the stories, now because we have such a mass following as a diaspora, we can actually get the truth out. And if we do it in a systematic way, and we have a network that is sharing to larger platforms and people are reposting that, and keep the conversation going the same way that it's going now, I do think that we'll be able to change that. But as far as the larger corporations, it's going to be very difficult to get them to actually change their tune, because the people who pay them benefit from us being in the position that we're in.
Yeah. Norman, can I bring you in at this point? Because we've seen quite huge that's happened just this week alone. Thursday, I should say, a presenter on LBC by the name of Nigel Farage. He was ousted. Now, he had very positive, and should I say, positive views for himself, negative views for us. But this is a part and parcel of the media. LBC had so many complaints, they were forced to let him step down. So this is what we're talking about in the media. Now it suddenly, everybody suddenly realized, look at the Capitol floor, look in the newsroom, the Capitol radio. Oh, where? Spot the black. Come on. It's been there. We know what it's about. But we need impact now.
Yes. And
proper representation with the media.
And to build on that, Pam, so thank you for raising that point. So it comes back to this concept of diversity and inclusion within the corporate space and across industries and whatever sector we're talking about. Now, for me, I'm privy to this conversation because I received an award in 2017 titled the Miranda Braun Diversity Leadership Scholarship. And it recognizes me as a future diversity leader in the legal industry. So with Miranda Braun, who's a diversity champion in law, banking, and so on and so forth, she really pushes for change. And it's one of those conversations where it's going to take time because we have to come back to this keyword of things being systemic. So, there aren't many of us at the top tiers. And that's why, as you're talking about misrepresentation, there might be one or two of us that are there. And the unfortunate instance occurs whereby if that one person makes a mistake, say they're on the BBC or ITV or some big platform that everyone tunes into, if they make one small slip up, then we can be quite unforgiving to them because it's like, but you're the one. And you made the mistake, and now we all look bad, which isn't fair, which isn't a fair sort of responsibility or onus to put on one individual. But that's unfortunately how things have played out for so long. So to overcome this issue, diversity and inclusion has to be a big conversation, and it has to be both ways. It can't just be those classified as BAME knocking on the door, but it has to be the people on the other side of the door really recognizing there's a significant business interest in them having BAME candidates as far as how it can be, how their companies received if we look at corporate social responsibility or, the business benefits that it can bring to them. So it's definitely a two-way conversation. But for me personally, diversity and inclusion across the industry, so even the media industry, for example, having more mentors, having more schemes, greater accessibility, these practical steps. We talk a lot about quotas, whether or not quotas are a good thing or not, this idea of we're going to take on at least 5, that meets mixed reviews. Some say it's good, it's affirmative action. It means that at least some people can get in the door versus some saying, well, no, it's a tick box exercise. Well, I think quotas are at least a start, but there's more to be done. And again, I think through mentoring, through accessibility, and I think through going down the chain of time. So, if we go back down to schools, for example, when I look at particular industries I was exposed to, so law in particular, I was on a law program that was sponsored by very big firms in the city. And that gave me my exposure to the legal industry. There are no lawyers in my family. And I was very fortunate to get on that program. That isn't the case for everyone, right? And I got mentors. So I think that's how things have to be. Accessibility and a greater focus on diversity and inclusion across the board, and that conversation being had. There are things being done now, but there's definitely room for more to be done.
Yeah, and moving forward, we need to see more change, and we need to quite quickly. Now, Pauline from Croydon asks, and this is going to be the Kings here, because she's saying that, we've seen the actor, Star Wars actor come up. She's saying we've seen actors and we've seen personalities come up and be at these rallies and be at these peace protests, but they haven't seen enough of the church representing. So, Michael, Marjorie, you want to respond to that? Needing to see more of the church at these rallies, maybe talking, I don't know, but they want to see more representation of the church.
The church were there yesterday. Pastor Sims was at the march yesterday with a number of other pastors to make sure that the children were safe, the young people were safe. So, and at the other marches, the pastors were there in Croydon. All the pastors turned out, and marched. And at some of the marches, Black Lives pastors were there marching as well, alongside with others. We support and we march with these things in a peaceful and correct fashion. So I would say to her, I must say, Pauline and Croydon, my area, pastors are there at every single march, and it's a fallacy to believe that we're not. And on the education point, so I've got to bounce back to that one and say to you that Windrush is now part of the national curriculum for up to the primary school level. We're fighting to get that into secondary school. And I would say with the Black Lives situation as it is, we should attack the national curriculum to have Black history in its entirety. Now's the time that the powers that be that make those decisions will listen. So 2 points, education, we can change things at curriculum level. It's already done with Windrush, and it's only from last year that this has happened. It's part of the national curriculum, the true story, and pastors are at every march. And to let you know, this pastor used to be in my youth a National Front fighter. I was at every march when I was on Save, and we went and fought the National Front everywhere, all over London and Southeast England. And it was with Rock Against Racism, it was with other alliances, anti-Jewish leagues, and many others, and mainly white people. But this pastor used to be at all the marches fighting as an unsaved person. Now I go to marches and there's no fighting, there's praying for the other side, and there's being very orderly.
Yeah, excellent. We got to talk about, maybe this is a slightly negative thing, but I don't know, I ask people to respond to this with any comment or any questions they want to ask. So what we've got is Clayton from, it looks like Boreham Wood. What would be the end result to all this rallying and violence on our streets? What difference can it make to society today? Who wants to respond?
Oh, can I jump in there? So again, 2 things. So when I first spoke, I spoke about the legal changes that we're seeing taking effect. Again, George Floyd passed away on the 25th of May. It's not been a month yet, and we've seen already some great changes happen in America. I listed them already. One example being the Senate reaching agreement on 10 bills related to police conduct, including a ban on police chokeholds. I'll just give that as one example. That is a practical outcome. George Floyd died because an officer knelt on his neck for 8 minutes and 45 seconds, and it was shown in the post-mortem and tests done that, yes, that was the reason why he passed, right? So to answer that gentleman's question, that individual's question, the legal change is a very important factor in what needs to happen, and we're seeing it already. Does it need to happen at a quicker pace? Yes, but at least we're getting somewhere. At least we're seeing some tangible outcomes. And secondly, in regards to what we're seeing, what I love about this conversation is it's almost 2 different generations. As far as my generation being younger, I'm 23, and we've got an older generation. Art is something that connects all human beings. And, looking at the 90s, for example, Tupac Shakur, one of the most prolific, revered rappers ever to do it, he spoke about these issues of police brutality. Fast forward to modern day, you've got Kendrick Lamar, you've got J. Cole, you've got Jay-Z, you've got Meek Mill, you've got this artistic expression. And I think that's one consequence of what's going on right now. You've got the youth using the art to channel and to really express what they're feeling in a way that hip-hop in the US in 2018 became the most popular genre of music, to my knowledge. So people are listening to it. Hip-hop has a voice. And you've got some very powerful, conscious individuals at the top of that pyramid, arguably. So there's a narrative there, and people can hear it, and people can hear what we have to say. So to answer the question, the law and a legal change and also artistic expression are 2 outcomes we are seeing.
So anyone else want to respond on that? I mean,
I'd like to.
Yes, Rianna.
What I would say is there are major issues that are affecting Black people, and what George Floyd's death or murder has done has brought a spotlight to some of the issues that we're facing. For instance, colonization still exists in Africa. Not only did they divide the continent into 54 different countries, gave each of us different languages so that we couldn't communicate with each other or get back together, but France is still colonizing 14 countries in Africa and takes 500 billion out of Africa every year. And no one's talking about that yet, but it's an issue that we're addressing now. On top of that, when they abolished or agreed to abolish slavery, slavery was illegal unless, or working and without pay was illegal unless that person was a criminal. And once they abolished slavery, all of a sudden you see the number of Black people being put in prison skyrocket. These things are not mutually exclusive, and the entire system needs to be broken down, but we're just starting very small. So what the protests are doing is bringing a spotlight to the very real issues. And what I don't think people realize is that before they enslaved Black people, they enslaved white people. It's just that they couldn't deal with the heat in the Caribbean, so they then ended up getting a race that was indestructible, for lack of a better term. So don't think for a moment that if all Black people disappeared tomorrow, the people that were rioting in central London wouldn't be in the exact same position working for capitalist means.
Yeah, excellent. Michael, Marjorie, do you want to respond to that?
Yeah, I just wanted to add that today, for the lady in Croydon, that they are marching right now in Croydon at Queen's Garden, Croydon, and they're doing it with the local community, with the mayor. So they'll have Roger Samuels as a singer, the voice of UK, and the politicians, and all of the churches are marching today, right now, in Croydon.
And the person's question was, what changes?
Yeah, what
was
is
all this rioting?
Yeah, the protest march.
Riotous behaviour. The point is, most of it's peaceful, and it's changed the world. The world is now focusing on racial injustice and injustice in general, but with a great focus on injustice against Black people. So the world is changing. And this person asked, what changes there? There's phenomenal change. The powers that be sit up and listen. My sister-in-law is in a phenomenal youth club that is mainly Black children going to. It's a new concept. It's mainly Black workers, and all the heads are white. And she was asking a meeting last week, what change can be there? And she said the change can be that in the senior management roles, we have Black faces. We've got them as workers, we've got them as members, we haven't got them in senior management roles. And senior management had to turn around and say, in that case, we're promoting people right now to senior management. This is a time for change at top level. And the person asked what change there is. The world has heard a cry, and there's a change. And as a Christian, I believe it's God's hand turning setbacks and evil things into leaps forward. This is going to be a leap forward for the world. And the world will change to be a better place, a fairer place, a more equal place, egalitarian place, a more Christian and loving place because of the marches that have happened. And may they continue.
May they continue.
I think, out of it, Black people are more joining together than ever before. Before they were divided. Now we're all coming closer together. We're communicating together, and we're not fighting as much as we used to.
Okay, Jackie, can we get Jackie in? Jackie? Okay. Jennifer Miller also says the conversations are taking place in the workplace as we speak. So, things are happening. So Clayton, things are happening. Sometimes it takes a little bit of time, but you know what? We got to keep going on with it. Jackie, are you with me? She's there, but we can't get. We got to move on. So, okay. When we talk about what Clayton is saying, and last week somebody posed the question. They said, "Look, we've had these race riots. We had it in Tottenham, 2011. We had this, for the murder of that, our Black brothers. And then every time we do have a rally, every time we do have a protest, every time we do sort of, have these marches, only a trickle effect happens." What I think they are fed up with, and I'm not to say that they don't think something great could happen here, but from what I read between the lines with a lot of our viewers that came in and spoke to us, they were sort of saying, "Oh, here we go again." That sort of attitude. But like I know what we're all still saying. We've still got to do it. We've still got to persevere. We've still got to do these protests. But there are a lot of people out there who've seen it all before. Race riots back in the 60s, the 80s, and then in the 20,000s. So I can understand what they're saying, but we have to continue. We have to continue. So where do we go to now? That was the first question. Where do we go to now? What level do we want to see the Black Lives Matters movement go up to? Do we now go on the negotiating table? Do we lobby government? Do we start pointing out legislation and what we want done. I'm going to talk about this in a moment because somebody's saying you're not talking about the statues. So they're wanting to say you haven't mentioned this. I did actually mention the statues in my intro, but okay, let's talk about statues. So who we got here? Angela from Basingstoke. She's in favour of many of the statues being torn down or with negotiations for them to be put into the museums. Agreed? No.
Can I just say,
Agreed. You remember that's the first conversation I started off with, that the first statue I'd like to be putting up right now is Sam King at the Windrush Square. If you remember when we first started talking, we said that, and we said we'd like to, as they tear down all the statues, you know, of men who is coming to, you know, used us as slavery. Let's put up black people who has made change to society, because there's many out there. There's not just Mary Seacole. There's many others, other great women, you know, has done great things, and other great men has done things. And we need to see those statues.
Yeah. Rianna?
Can I just say, Dr. Umar Johnson put it very well. The issue of the statues is like worrying about the painting on a house. The entire system is rotten to the core. The foundation that the house is built on is rotten. And we're worried about the painting of the houses. Ripping down the statues was an act of frustration, and I'm not against them ripping down the statues. Do what you do, but I'm not worried about them. I don't look at statues when I go into, that's not something that I do on a day-to-day basis. And I do think it's important for them to erect black statues as much as they would erect white statues. But if people don't even understand who Sam King is and what he really did, because they're not educated, they can't even get the value out of having that statue. So in my opinion, we need to organize ourselves and deal with the actual foundation before we worry about the decoration. Because in my opinion, this is one of their biggest tricks that they pull out their bag. It's a distraction from the real issue.
Norman?
If I can jump in there. So pivoting off what Rianna had to say, this whole concept of the UK is not innocent. When I've spoken to people, there's been a bit of a difficulty in understanding, like, why has the UK reacted so intensely and so emotively with regards to Black Lives Matter? And, you know, there are several factors with regards to real issues that are going on as to why this is going on. And I think there are 5 key factors we need to consider. So I'm going to list them very quickly. So first of all, we have the Windrush scandal in 2018, which saw some victims losing their jobs and being deported, in instances being wrongfully. You have the Grenfell Tower incident in 2017, which led to the death of 72 people, many of them Black and Asian, allegedly because of neglect. Calls for increased education about Britain's colonial past, disproportionate deaths in the BAME community because of COVID-19, and, you know, more information surrounding why that is, and also deaths in police custody and police brutality in the UK over time from the 90s to present. So looking at those 5 factors and really building what Rianna had to say about sorts of what the more rooted issues are at play, I think where we go from here, especially in the UK, is sort of unpicking some of these bigger issues and really delving into, okay, how do we now begin to right the wrongs? How do we begin to sort of work out? And again, this is a thing of, I've accepted, because I'm only 23, but when I read history, things have taken time. I would love things to change tomorrow, but I don't think that's going to happen. So I appreciate things are going to take time. And the first part is for all of us to come to a place of what are the key issues that we need to tackle right now. And when we pick apart those 5 key factors, we can really start to then work on, okay, how can we work to mitigate the effects of deaths in police custody or disproportionate deaths in the baby community due to COVID? That makes sense.
I know. There's a whole bit more. I mean, I can't even go through them all now. We've run out of time.
Exactly.
It's not going away. So every week we're going to be on this. So it's not going away. So all of you guys that, you know, you've written in, you've got your comments. We will get to you. So it's not going to be wasted. It's not going to be wasted at all. If next week you can put those on. But thank you ever so much for your response. Of course, it's huge. Of course, you will be responding in your masses. You know, so sorry I couldn't get through it all. Ever so much thanking you. Thanking you, Michael and Marjorie King. Thanking you, Rianna Thompson. Thanking you, Norman. I'll see you soon, Norman. And I don't know if Dr. Jackie Jeffrey is still there, but thank you, Jackie, if you can hear me. But anyway, thank you ever so much. Take care, all of you, and blessings.
Thanks. Bye.
See you soon. Bye-bye. Wow.
Bless you. Thank you.
I'm going to still say that I'm so sorry that we couldn't really go through all the questions, the comments, and everything that our viewers are sending to us. But thank you ever so much. Keep them coming, though, because I can still do them for next week. This isn't going away, as I've said. Just before we do a little bit of a break, is there my co-conspirator with me? Can I have Mr. Oh,
Hey.
You ain't got that seat, the crown. Where was that big seat that you're sitting on? I can call you Sir Anthony.
Don't worry. But backgrounds don't define titles.
Ah!
Okay, don't worry about me. No, I'm a mover and shaker in the world of travel. I'm keeping the world there, so I'm between places, between weeks. So sometimes you'll recognize this background, other times I'm more regal. But no, it's crown. It's all there.
It's all there. And I did, Anthony, what we said earlier on the show, we hope people have been listening. I think it might go more to your side of it in the entertainment corner. Rarely listen out here because we've got that gorgeous hamper.
Indeed we do. And it's up for grabs. It's not for us. It's not for we can't win this. But it's there for one lucky winner. And I believe you'll be announced next week. So we'll put the question out there and you have a chance to win there. So do keep tuned for a little boost of the immune system in these current times, a boost to lighten your day in these trying times that we've had.
Yeah.
This one's for you, for sure. Yeah.
Excellent. So you're coming up with, we need those vibes going on. We need the, musical feel-good factor and entertainment gossip and just to hear some words of inspiration as well. And
Indeed.
You, Tessa Webb, we can't stop. Well said, Pam. We can't stop. We got to keep going on. Basically, we got to keep protesting. That's what she said. Tessa Webb has said, we've got to keep protesting. We've got to keep doing it. We can't stop now. All right.
That's the one. That is the one indeed. So thank you, guys. And guys, again, just keep commenting and we will interact as much as we can. It is busy, but if you're there, we will acknowledge you as much as we can. So, yeah, we'll off to a break and we'll talk.
So, Anthony.
You're welcome.